Alicia Perkins, who's an Olympia School District mom, who we've had on the show many times, she also has a blog called OSD Rescue, and she published a story. Here's the headline: Sheriff Sanders revokes school board endorsement. So Sheriff Derek Sanders, who is just a common sense guy, he had decided to endorse a common sense school board candidate in Frank Dorisher. God, that's a tough name. Well, the activists didn't like that. The fringe activists who want to keep someone who aligns with their ideology in the school board, who want someone who's going to go in there, who's going to be obsessed with dividing kids on the basis of race, who's going to be obsessed with transgender issues in school as opposed to, you know, teaching kids how to actually succeed in life. So they were not happy with this, not happy at all. She goes on to write in this blog post, the endorsements for Dorisher enraged some activists, many of whom hold leadership positions in Thurston County Democrats and other local progressive political parties. In addition, Stephanie Scott, a candidate for North Thurston School Board, also entered the fray. A relentless character assassination had already been underway on Dorisher for months, as his opponent was their endorsed candidate for the same position. What are Dorisher's sins? Well, he attended a petition signing event to reverse Bill 5599, which advocates for parental rights in their minor children's medical care. So let me stop there for a second. So one of the reasons these activists, we're just going to call him Frank, I can't say his freaking last name. One of the reasons these activists don't want Frank to be elected to the Olympia School Board is because he attended my event in Lacey. He attended my event. We have video from it if you need a reminder. He attended the event I held for Referendum 101, which would have reversed an absolutely disastrous bill in Senate Bill 5599. I was protested at that event with people calling me anti-transgender. And I spoke to some of the activists, and we had a perfectly fine conversation about the reason I was opposed to Senate Bill 5599, but that did not stop them from telling the whole internet that I was anti-transgender. And now this poor school board candidate, simply because he attended my event to sign that referendum, they don't want him on the school board, and they're using that. They're using that as a way now to attack Sheriff Derek Sanders for endorsing him. So Alicia Perkins posted a couple of the comments from activists who were at that protest against me, saying, oh, Sheriff Sanders is a horrible person for endorsing this guy for school board. Tila Rose, who's an activist, who I spoke to at the event. We had a perfectly fine conversation. I even invited her on the show.
Yeah.
But now she's still ringing the bell about how anyone who attended that event is anti-transgender.
Yeah, I reached out to her. She did originally, I believe, say that she would come on, and then she decided she would not come on.
Yeah. Well, she goes on Facebook, the trans community and our families are less safe in Thurston County as Sheriff Sanders comes out to endorse Olympia School Board candidate and anti-trans campaigner Frank Dorisher, simply to tap into the racist and transphobic voter base of Thurston County to endorse Proposition 1. Proposition 1 is something that's going to be on the ballot that is going to help with funding for law enforcement in Thurston County. Another activist who was at this event, following up for those who've asked, Frank Dorisher's post in June supporting an anti-trans petition signing event hosted by the owners of Cutter's Point, hosted by me, where myself and others observed him handing out campaign signs. I encourage you to visit his campaign Facebook and watch video recordings of various candidate forums to get to know the platform, And then they go on to say he's like a threat to trans youth. So anyway, this is the normal stuff. It's the stuff that I faced when I held these Referendum 101 signing events with these very same activists who shouted really loud online, who made a big stink, who called me transphobic, who tried to attack Cutter's Point Coffee Company for hosting the event to the point where I was kind of afraid that the owners of the coffee shop would cancel the event, because nobody wants to be subjected to that much attack online, especially when your business is in jeopardy. But Cutter's Point Coffee Company are like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to stand up for what's right. We know you're not hateful or a bigot, and we're not either, but we believe in parental rights. And so we went through with the event. We don't care what the activists say. We know the activists don't know anything about us. They don't know anything about me or my character. And all they do is try to bully people and label people to get what they want. So we didn't back down, which is why I was really disappointed to see that in the face of those attacks from fringe lunatics, Sheriff Derek Sanders has caved. He decided to revoke his endorsement of the school board candidate that the activists wanted him to not support. Alicia Perkins says in her article, in a disappointing and frankly surprising turn of events, by Tuesday, October 10th, Sheriff Sanders told Dorosher he was revoking his endorsement. Sanders made clear that the decision was a result of Dorosher's opponents consistently attacking him and telling people he is transphobic for endorsing Frank. Sanders also acknowledged that no evidence was produced supporting that claim, but the public pressure campaign against him was simply not sustainable. So, look, I've got to say, I'm a little surprised by it. I expressed that I did speak to Sheriff Sanders this morning and just expressed that I was like, this is actually a surprise that it would just take a few angry activists on the internet to change course, but it's so much more detrimental than that. And look, I get it, and I don't know everything going on in the full rationale. I know that, Proposition 1 is on the ballot, which is important for police funding, so maybe he felt like I just can't be involved in this political fray right now or whatever it is. But the thing is that to think that giving in to these activists and rescinding this endorsement would stop them, would satisfy them, of course it's not going to. Of course it's not going to change their opinion of you. They already have an incorrect opinion of you. They already believe that some flimsy tie to a school board candidate who has some flimsy tie to an event I held makes the sheriff a transphobe, makes the sheriff a racist. The sheriff isn't a transphobe. He's not a bigot. He's not a racist. He knows that. I know that. You know that. Who cares what fringe activists on the internet have to say? How many people are really listening to that? So it might seem like the easier thing to do in the moment to just say, I can't deal with this, I'm going to give in. But it erodes so much of what we're fighting for on this show. We're fighting to make sure that reasonable people, right, left, and center, can have their voice heard, can stand up for what they believe in. And they're not afraid of what the fringes on either side will call them or say about them, because they know that what they're fighting for and what they're standing up for is much more important. And, true to what I knew would happen here, the activists are still going after Sheriff Sanders. What he did in rescinding the endorsement isn't enough. Now they want some sort of big formal apology. And they also want him to move away from his position of supporting school resource officers returning to the Olympia School District. They weren't going to stop with him rescinding the endorsement of this candidate. Alicia wrote in her article, having acquiesced to these demands, Sanders continues to be pressured to do more. He is now being asked by the same activists to issue a public statement essentially atoning for the error of his ways. Not only about having the audacity to associate with the likes of Frank Dorosher, but for his wrong opinion on law enforcement altogether. So what does Sheriff Sanders do now? Does he just keep giving in? Does he give a mouse a cookie? You just keep giving in. Well, I gave in and I rescinded the endorsement and now they're still attacking me. Do I give in? And what? Do I, fall to my knees and beg the online activists for forgiveness? No, because nothing you say or do is ever going to be enough for them. They want you to do exactly what they want, to think exactly like they think, and you're not going to. So trying to please them is a losing proposition. And look, I have a lot of respect for Sheriff Derek Sanders. I am sure that he's under immense pressure. And I don't know if Proposition 1 has something to do with it, that he really just wants to make sure that there's not a lot going on that's controversial right now. But this isn't going to change things. It's not going to change how they feel about you. And I just go back to, I think this is an example of the exact opposite of what we're trying to preach. The fringes are scary. They will call you names. They'll try to get you fired from your job. They'll try to ruin relationships or whatever they can do to make you too scared to speak up, too scared to take a stand. And when reasonable people become too scared to do what's right, that's how a state like Washington goes downhill in the way that it has. That's what leads to it. And so we need reasonable people like Sheriff Sanders to be willing to take a stand and not to back down to activists and to the loudest voice in the room.